Yes, I'm Commissioner Richard Majori, Town of Hillsborough Beach. All right, the water plant. The water plant is 60 years old, and I visited it. The plans were all made before I was on the commission. However, they borrowed approximately $6 million, and it's a draw. So we only pay interest. It's 1.6% interest, which we felt was very good. And it's a draw, so you only pay interest on the money as we use it.
Right.
And it really needs to be completely rebuilt. It's had Band-Aids just for too long. And they had investigated purchasing water from the county and from Deerfield and from Pompano. And it worked out that this would be cheaper. And
We've heard some discussion about whether this should be done in stages or all in one shot.
well, they're not doing it in stages. It's going to have to be all in one shot.
Okay.
The reason for that is you hire a contractor, and then they have to set up. And if you do it in stages, all the subcontractors will have to set up, and it's just going to take too long, and it'll be too costly. So I think it'd probably be done in about a year's time. So that's the water plant.
Okay. Ms. Schubert, what's your take on the water plan and this process?
Okay, there's factually, there's not, a whole lot to add. I do have to say that I was always under the impression, it was my opinion, that we should investigate more modern and new technologies to do our water plant. But at this point, the town is committed to the restoration of the water plant. So basically, can I go off subject just a little bit without?
Yeah.
Okay. The work that needs to be done on the water plant and the length of time it's taking to get to the decisions and all the other processing is basically one of my main reasons for running, okay? The commission has held fast to meeting once a month. And since they can't speak to each other, I mean, witness, you had to rearrange everything, meeting once a month is simply not sufficient. They need to, they must meet twice a month, as do all of the towns around us. And if you remember several years ago, maybe you don't remember, they had a charter review. Both Joe and I were on the charter review, and one of the main issues we pushed was changing from the once monthly meeting to a twice monthly meeting so that a question is asked. What is this process for the water plant going to cost? We have to wait 1 month to get the answer. Now, if the answer isn't the answer you want, you have to ask another question, and it takes an entire month before that can be processed. And it literally pushes everything to the limits, because can you imagine running a business if you can only talk to each other once a month? It's impossible. Now, we proposed this change, and the sitting commission, not Mr. Majori, who wasn't on there, flatly turned it down because it was just too time-consuming. They didn't want to have to schedule twice a month, and that is one of the things, one of the reasons I'm running, is because I really feel that the town can be much more efficient and not cost money by meeting twice a month, but save money by meeting twice a month. And I'm sorry, I'm off on a little bit of a rant, but that is a major issue to me. I mean, I feel finances are so tough now, and even though Hillsborough Beach is a relatively affluent area, our tax revenues are way down. People are teetering on the edge of losing their homes. So we need to do everything possible to be more efficient and to have people that can give the time on an almost voluntary basis, because the commission makes, nothing. Really be able to devote the time to function efficiently. And I just think with this major project coming up, it's going to be even more important. Because, with the beach renourishment, which is another issue, we're up against the deadline again.
All right.
So,
Mr.
sorry.
Germano?
Yeah, my name is Joe Germano. I've lived at the Hillsborough Beach here since 1999. And I'm going to probably coattail a little bit on what Claire's talking about, but every election cycle, I start to hear things about, I'm going to run the town like a business. I got the expertise, I know how to do it, I'm a businessman, I do all of this stuff. And then I look and I take a look at just the water plant as an example. 50 years old. Now, any business has to have capital improvement, capital maintenance, has to understand the building is deteriorating. I heard a few years ago somebody say the building was dying. Well, it didn't start dying a few years ago, it's been dying. It's just nobody's noticed it or nobody's paid any attention to it. So now we resort to what I call crisis management. Now we have to do it. How are we going to do it? And I learned, look, I was a federal worker for 35 years, most of my career. 15 years I worked in business as a general manager and consultant. And I can tell you one thing for sure. When you are forced into doing something or buying something, you're not going to get your best deal because you have to do it, you're up against the wall. And they've said, commissioners have said, the plant is dying. We can't delay decisions any longer, we must do them. And then talking about in all fairness, they scheduled 11 meetings a year. Now, last year they had 6 additional ones. I don't consider those meetings because those are special meetings, emergency meetings, you gotta build it on meetings. Then they do the building and zoning, they squeeze that into that one meeting. I can summarize this just simply by saying they don't have the time. That's what the problem is. They don't have the time to do that. 2 big meetings a month. They don't. When you schedule 2 meetings a month, just take some more time out of your schedule.
But you mean don't have the time in the sense because they don't meet often enough, or because they're
Meet
so busy in
often
their
enough.
own?
Now, when they go to schedule an emergency meeting or a special meeting, that becomes a problem. Can't come Tuesday, I can't go Wednesday, I can't go. Remember, this is a non-paying job. They don't get paid to do this job. I mean, if you want to count $150 a month expenses. But the thing in a nutshell is when you do this, it's strictly a volunteer. You got to put in the time. You're not going to make no living over here. And if you haven't got that time to do it, I don't think any of them don't have the ability. I mean, I think they can do it as well as I can. You know, if you have to meet with people, you have to discuss issues, you just have to have the time to do it. And all of us have 24 hours a day time. It's just how are you going to spend it?
Do you feel, Mr. Germano, that you'd be able to devote enough time to this?
I can, if you, I don't know if you had an opportunity to read some of my replies to your questionnaires, but I covered a lot of this stuff in there. As a matter of fact, some of the questions I didn't answer because, you know, I wanted to get to the point, why am I running? It's never been my ambition to be a politician. I mean, I was a federal employee for many, many years. And we have, just look at our structure. We have 2 full-time employees in town hall and 1 part-time. And we've got 5 commissioners to supervise these people. I mean, I think that needs to be restructured. They need help in there. I stop in there once in a while, I see papers, things, files everywhere. They just don't have the time to do it. And we spoke about that even at the Charter Review Committee. When you saw some of the responses, I read one of them, and it said, charter is just fine. It doesn't need any changes in it. Well, look, that charter it started in 1939. It was virtually dormant, no activity from 39 to 47. 47, they started the meetings, they appointed their first mayor or elected their first mayor in 1947. There were 17 voters in the town, 9 homes. I mean, you know, you get, and essentially that's the way it's been operating ever since. Now, they talk about all the time the sunshine laws, but we can't talk in between and we can't do that. Well, that's fine. You didn't have sunshine laws then, so you could do all negotiations together. But now that you have them, you have to deal with this stuff. It's just like, I don't want to get onto the beach stuff, but they're there. It's a reality. All this hand-wringing and agonizing over we can't meet together out of the public meeting. So you can't. I live in a condominium. They're not as strict. You know, you can have as long as it's not a quorum, 2 people can talk together. But every time that issue comes up, I say the same thing. That's what the law is. You have to comply with that. So you got to figure out how to do it. And if it means we got to sit out here in public or in front of all the unit owners every time we want to talk, that's what you got to do.
Okay. Want to get a reaction from Commissioner about this question, about the number of meetings and...
Well, just to get back to the water plant, if you don't mind. The water plant, the permit expired in 1998, and they were operating without a permit until, I believe it was November 2010. And that was the prior administration, the previous mayor and that administration. They hadn't renewed the permit, so before they could do anything with the water plant, they had to get a permit, which they've done. As far as the meetings go, I think it would be helpful to have 2 meetings a month. These meetings are going on for sometimes 6 and 7 hours, and it's grueling. You're sitting up there, and all these things are coming in front of you, and they deliver a book to each commissioner probably about 4 or 5 days before the meeting, and the book is this thick with every single thing. Sometimes there's 30 items on the agenda, and then you have to have a hearing on each one. Some of them are zoning exceptions, some of them are site plans, some of them are building plans, the water plant, police report, it just, a building department, fire department reports, it's just overwhelming. And I certainly do think that it would be helpful to have 2 meetings a month, at least. Maybe you can have 1 meeting a month in July and August, but the other months, I think it would be very helpful to have 2 meetings a month. And I also feel that one of those meetings should be held in the evening, so that people that work could come to the meeting.